Prince Harry is striking out on his own and leaving wife, apparently Meghan Markle, behind, at least professionally. That is what has been apparent as Prince Harry does sort of this wild, long trip, starting with apparently a trip to the mountains with some of his friends that happened the week after his birthday. Then he went to New York City, didn't go back home, then went to London, where he is right now, and then probably going to South Africa after that. That seems to be the track he's on. And it is very, very odd for numerous reasons. Of course, number one being that this is the longest he's spent away, I think, from Meghan Markle since they got married. And of course, the two of them, especially her, she has a lot of seemingly control issues around their relationship. That she's not accompanying him on this tour is really, really odd, especially because that is her home continent. I mean, she made such a big deal about going to Nigeria and reclaiming her heritage with her husband. But is he maybe getting somewhat sick of her controlling and narcissistic ways? Is that why there is this professional separation? Or is he trying to recapture the royal magic, which is a pretty big risk at this point, given that there's not a lot of like for Harry out there. So much going on, so many interesting little tidbits. I think formulate a story of a couple who, yes, are going their different ways professionally, and that's perfectly fine, even though they did claim to be salt and pepper at one point, shared an office, shared a desk in their office. Very weird. But that maybe this is a signal of further separations to come, because it is very different than how they've approached things before. And is this their desperate grab to try to make more money, or maybe make Meghan the sole breadwinner? It's very interesting. So many, again, like I said, there's just little trickles of information. And if you pull it all together, I will try to paint you a very interesting picture. But if you guys haven't been to Royal News Network before, hello, my name is Brittany. I provide compelling royal commentary in addition to news. So if you guys would like to hit that subscribe button, that would be awesome. We are closing in on 161,000 subscribers, and I kind of want to get to 200 by the end of the year. That's 3 months away. That's probably a big leap. I'll be totally honest, but I firmly believe it is possible. So if you guys love what we do here and want to continue to support the channel, feel free to give a subscribe. And I will also be heading and hopefully doing and getting some great royal coverage in December in Europe, because I have a trip to the Christmas markets. Now, some of my royal coverage will not be on that, but if you love Christmas, castles, museums, history, all those sorts of things, we do have a trip to Germany and the Czech Republic, going to Berlin, Dresden, and Prague. It'll be amazing. We'll get to go to the Christmas markets and try to see as many other things as we can. Yes, the weather will be chilly, but the company will be warm, lovely, and amazing, because so many people make friends when they are on these trips. Amazing relationships are born. So if you guys are interested in that or thinking about it, we just have about 2 weeks for you to sign up for that trip. So if you are thinking about it, considering it, again, there's just 2 weeks. It closes on October 16th. So check out the link up above, and we would love to have you join us. Okay, so all this stuff with Harry, so much going on, and it's almost like hard to gauge where exactly things are going, because there's a lot of things where it's like, well, this is kind of weird. You're kind of doing the pseudo royal thing again. You're not really royal, so this kind of reads a bit odd. But then he's also trying to do the celebrity thing, going on Jimmy Fallon, doing that haunted house tour, promoting the Tonightmares for NYC residents and those visiting. And so Harry is playing the fool in that, and playing the celebrity who's willing to do anything to make a buck, but yet also trying to be a statesman, sort of trying to be a real. It's very confusing. And again, this goes back to something I've criticized Harry and Meghan for a lot, is that their messaging, their PR is kind of all over the place. And they need a specific message. What is your message? I don't care what it is. You just need to pick one. You just need to pick a lane and stick to it. Stop jumping here and there and everywhere. Pick a lane. That is the most important thing for Harry and Meghan, for sure. But given that Harry is spending so much time away from Meghan, probably the longest since they've gotten engaged, I think the longest he's maybe spent away from her would be maybe a week up to 10 days. Other than that, they have to travel together. Or like the coronation, he flies there like a day and a half before and then flies immediately back the same day. The guy barely spent any time in the United Kingdom. I've spent more time in the United Kingdom the last couple of years, I think, than Prince Harry has. As soon as he gets there, he has to fly home. And so that he's going from London to South Africa, apparently without her, is very, very odd. And what does this tell us? A couple of things, but let's see what other people are saying because I think there's a bunch of interesting tidbits that I've seen online here that I just want to highlight. And then I'll try to give you guys my analysis of where I think things are going. Royalty, if you don't know, it is a profile that I do like following. They provide some interesting insights. I don't always agree with everything, but they are a alleged PR expert. I say alleged just because I don't know who they are, but I think they have a good insight into some things. And they say Harry is not rebranding. He is reverting to his old brand. It's 90% working royal era patronages and projects with a smattering of digital citizenship, mental health, and fun Harry appearances. His only content project is about polo. This is not a new Harry in any sense. And I just want to take that at first. And I think that's a very astute conclusion because he is trying to recapture the royal magic. He's not doing the actual thing, which is going back and being a working royal, but he's trying to recapture that. And I've said this before. Harry and Meghan tried to do some of these things through their cosplay royal routine, and it just doesn't totally work because you're not royal anymore. Because the major problem is when it comes to royals, they do charity engagements and they don't get paid for them. Harry now is going to make his charity pay. If you want Harry to speak at your event, there's a six-figure charge that's waiting for you to make that happen. Now, granted, other people do that too, but when you switch from royals who never got a paycheck for doing that to all of a sudden he won't do things without a paycheck like that in charity events, that becomes a big problem because most of these charities probably can't pay for Harry. Now, and you consider the Well Child Awards where he was at this evening. I don't think he charged them, but he could have. And that would be a big change from what they're used to. And again, Harry does need these things to pay because the money is going to run out, which is kind of the point I made. But I did like what Sabria said. Basically, nothing was working in his attempt to brand in Hollywood. So he wants to play the act of being royal again. It's the only life he knew and the only life he actually was somewhat happy with. And royalty said, even though he was apparently completely miserable, make it make sense. Yes, that is so good. He was apparently so miserable being a working royal. Meghan was so miserable being working royal. And yet they're doing the cosplay royal routine. They're literally recreating it every time they go and they'll set up pseudo royal engagements for themselves. It's weird. It's bizarre. And what I have a big issue with here too is that there is no royalty here. We don't have a royal of the United States. We have royals who live here, but we do not have an American royal. And the reason is we don't want it. We don't need it. We have politicians, we have celebrities. They can be a celebrity, but they can't be a royal. So, on the face of it, this sort of routine has a shelf life because at some point people are going to go, you're doing all this in the name of royalty for a country that we literally fought a war over so we don't have to listen to you. That's what people are going to come to at some point. It's going to start to rub people the wrong way. This can't be a career for him. And I feel like him and Meghan are trying to make this a career for themselves. Number one, it probably won't really pay that much at the end of the day. Or you get into this space where every charity thing you do is only for a paycheck and not because you really care, which again raises a lot of questions. But it is a really ridiculous thing I think he is attempting to do. He needs to find a real career. This is not a real career. Yes, you know how to be royal. And yes, that was a thing where you were probably happiest now that you look back on it, but you can't recapture the magic because you left. When you leave, things get damaged in the process. And I don't think Harry has totally recognized that yet. And that, again, is going to be a big problem for him. And of course, Meghan Markle is a factor into this as well. So this is a tweet I made from an Express article because I thought this was really interesting. And it was talking about Harry's sort of new path. And it says, the message is clear. Fall in love with Harry again. And in time, the public might just accept Meghan too. I mean, that could work, as I said, but the problem is he's still married to her. And although I think obviously he did make his own decisions in many situations, he was deeply influenced by her. The Harry we see is not the Harry he was 6, 7, 8 years ago before he met her. Totally different Harry. And I don't know if he can quite recapture the magic because, again, he told us he rubbed Elizabeth Arden cream on his penis and thought of it as his dead mother. So I don't think we'll ever get that out of our minds because he gave it to us because he was stupid enough to write Spare. And I think that was firmly under his influence. But what was really interesting is the idea and the line that Harry recognizes, or someone on Harry and Meghan's team recognizes, that's really Meghan who's the problem. Meghan is the one who's tarnishing his public image. So that little quote was from this Express article. Again, I don't put too much emphasis on the Express. And so it talks about how Harry holds significant clout, something he perhaps stands in contrast when he appears alongside Meghan. His solo appearances subtly suggest that without the baggage of controversy, which his wife is, Harry's presence alone is enough to command attention and admiration. Now, again, those are interesting words because I think Harry wants to be the center of attention and get a lot of admiration. I think that is 100% what the guy wants. And his wife doesn't let that happen because she wants all the attention, adulation, support, love, and energy focused on her. And I think the Columbia trip really rubbed Harry the wrong way. I think he got to points where he was immensely frustrated by the fact that he was just basically a hanger on guy there to just prop her up, when the reality is she is only being invited because she married him. That's the only reason she was invited at all. Other than that, without him, nobody would give, again, two craps about Meghan Markle. She says nothing interesting. She has repeated a soap story ad nauseum, one that doesn't even make any sense, one that you would have to be utterly and completely deluded to actually believe that she herself, as an 11-year-old, changed a multi-million-dollar marketing campaign. She is completely devoid of connection to most people and things. She kind of flits around and tries to act it, but when push comes to shove, it's not really there. And so she is sort of a baggage. And he, unlike her, is the blood royal. When it comes to royalty, blood does matter. And her status, again, is only a byproduct of his. At the end of the day, her elevated status as a royal is merely a byproduct of the fact that he is the son of the king. No other reason. She is not, again, that interesting without him. She's nothing really without him. I mean, all the royals in general. She owes them everything. The only reason anybody knows who she is because Harry was foolish enough to marry her, and that's pretty much it. Even after everyone told him it was a bad idea, he went ahead and married her. But the reality is that the power always resides with the crown. The influence always resides with the crown. And Meghan is just merely a byproduct of her relationship with Harry. But the recognition that Meghan is the problem, I think, is a huge step forward for Harry because she is the problem. She is the problem with his public image. And so separating them helps her and it helps him too. But the big problem is, and one of the things I think has always been the problem, is they can't work. And their output is dismal because when it comes to Harry and Meghan, they want to make their charity pay and they don't want to do any other work. They really want to just show up to places and have people be just like totally in awe of them and give them money, and that's it. And the reality is they do actually need to have real jobs. And apparently the sort of real job they have producing content for Netflix, apparently they really suck at it. So this is a Daily Mail piece talking about tensions emerge over Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's Netflix Polo documentary, with bosses unhappy about the Duke's absence from the 5-part series. Okay, number one, that this series is 5 parts is a problem. It is a niche world that nobody knows. You have to make it incredibly compelling to have it go on for 5 episodes. And I've seen their content. It's pretty bad. Even the Harry and Meghan Netflix documentary was not a good documentary. It did well because of the subject matter that it dealt with, not because it was good. And so this, though, they're apparently not happy about it. Also, it doesn't focus on Harry, but his friend Nacho. And I think this is interesting and actually a good thing because technically, that's what Harry and Meghan should have been doing from the jump, is trying to focus on others and really try to build up their reputations without relying on their royal status. That would make them, I think, more successful if they had talent here. Again, a great example of the contrary is Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen, who run The Row, a massively, massively successful fashion brand that has been acquired now by several other companies, although Mary-Kate and Ashley still have a controlling interest, and it's expanding. It's gaining a bigger footprint in fashion, a notoriously cutthroat industry. Not even everyone with a big name makes it. Zach Posen, who designed Princess Eugenie's reception gown, had to close up shop for a bit. Vampire's wife, who's had royals wear the outfits and enjoy them, like Princess Beatrice, Catherine the Princess of Wales, had to fold for a variety of reasons. Fashion is an incredibly cutthroat industry, but Mary-Kate and Ashley have grown the brand not by relying on themselves and the impact that they've had culturally because of their connection with Full House and all the made for VHS series that they did and all the fashion. Like Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen, if you were a kid in the 90s, like they were everywhere. I had a friend who was like obsessed with Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen. And she had like every VHS tape of them and all their little shows and everything. And so they had a huge cultural footprint, but they decided to step away from that. They're notoriously private. And they've built this brand basically on the quality of the product. Harry and Meghan have products that are crappy. They produce subpar content, in my opinion. And that has not changed. They've even cut corners by acquiring basically somebody else's documentary and finishing it and just adding their narration. That thing completely and utterly bombed. And I think part of it was, they're taking shortcuts. They're not really working. Harry's Invictus Games documentary bombed. It flopped, only 300,000 views. My reaction to it got 400,000. Never going to let Harry forget that. I mean, I don't talk to him. But anyways, that just goes to show I don't think they have longevity and they're not producing good products. The Invictus documentary, there were aspects where there was compelling. There were aspects where it dragged. Same thing with their series. There were aspects of it I was like, golly, you guys are not God's gift to romance. Please, please stop going on and on and on how perfect your love is. It's obnoxious. They needed to streamline it, make it more compelling, and, try to do things like not use stock footage of things that you should have evidence for, like all the paparazzi pictures were like stock footage. So it's kind of bad. One of them was like incredibly obvious it was a fake picture. And I'm like, okay, so you don't have any pictures of guys in a car with a telephoto lens. So you have to basically buy a stock image, like a cheap looking stock image to try to sell the idea that you were being stalked by a guy in a car with a camera lens. Okay. Okay. Not working. But anyways, Netflix apparently is not happy with Harry and Meghan, and particularly the final edit of this documentary because they were hoping for more bang for their buck. And again, like I said, I admire Harry and Meghan for focusing on Nacho and not themselves, particularly Harry in this instance. But polo is an incredibly niche thing. It needs a big name to draw people in. Nacho is not that guy. Nacho is not that guy. They even mentioned Harry's name in the promo with Netflix. Not, again, necessarily a good thing. So it has apparently been nicknamed the Nacho Show. And the thing is Nacho compelling? Did he get this because of his merits? Now, granted, he is a huge name in the polo space. I get that. Or did he get it because he's a personal friend of Harry and Meghan? Sometimes it doesn't look really good if you are drawing on the personal a little bit too much. And this is a quid pro quo thing. You could see it that way. Also, as well, Nacho better be promoting the heck out of this thing because Harry and Meghan, what they have failed to do as well is do the normal thing Hollywood people do, which is promote their product. When you can't promote the product most likely will fail. Their first thing did well. Spare did well. Why? Because it traded off the rails. Their own personal initiatives have yet to succeed. Anything not related to the royals has failed. And so they need to tread carefully. Now, granted, again, I'm not saying he should be talking about royal stuff, but again, it's an interesting thing. They said apart from their documentary series, which had the drama of them quitting the royal family, everything else they've produced has been underwhelming. I'd even argue that was underwhelming. It performed well, but again, not because it was actually good. Any reasonable person tuning into a show about polo made by Prince Harry would expect to take a starring role. That he's not is hugely disappointing for Netflix. Let's face it, polo isn't exactly a mainstream sport. So the attraction would have been watching Harry. Without him, it's marginal at best. Netflix deal expires next year, so the Sussexes need a big hit. This sounds like a nothing burger. And apparently also it's pretty boring. And I wouldn't be surprised. It's 5 episodes. A documentary on polo does not need to be 5 episodes. It really, really does not, unless you have a really, really good, compelling story. If it's not a really, 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 really good, compelling story, you got a really, really, really big problem. And again, comes from 2 people who have no clue what they're doing, and it shows. It really shows they have no clue what they're doing. And of course, Harry's time in New York was, you could call it hijacked. This is by page 6. The drama surrounding Meghan and the additional bullying allegations against her. So, he talked about the dangers of social media while his wife was also allegedly to be a bully. So, one political advisor in NY for the UN General Assembly told us this totally hijacked any coverage Harry got. It was quite an own goal. And so they are separating, but now they could be competing against each other. And that is never really good in a relationship. So obviously, this dismantled Harry's complete week. And it said, page 6 said, despite everything, this is the direction Harry wants to take. He wants to be seen as a statesman and a philanthropist. However, and a political insider told page 6 he has some way to go before he can claim that kind of impact made by Hollywood stars such as Matt Damon and Jennifer Garner with her kids' charity Once Upon a Farm. He's not yet viewed as a statesman, an insider added, or as a celebrity who has really made a huge philanthropic impact. He's not like Jennifer Garner or Sophia Bush. Those are the real social impact activists. So this is interesting. And this goes along with, again, Harry barring the press from any coverage of the African Parks event that he went to in NYC. That apparently his team asked that no in-house photographers would be in the back room for the Clinton Global Initiative. So they couldn't see him talking to or not talking to Bill, Hillary, or Chelsea Clinton, Jane Goodall, restaurateur Jose Andres, Chopani CEO Hamadi Yulikaya, and Lorraine Powell Jobs, the widow of ex-Apple executive Steve Jobs, who all spoke in this same session. Why wouldn't you want the Clinton Foundation or any of those backstage people to promote your cause? Interesting question. The night before his speech, we're told Harry and his team took over the ballroom at the Hilton Hotel in Midtown, the home of the CGI Summit, and rehearsed at length, making numerous tweaks and edits to his talk. He was very hands-on and took it very seriously. I think he was nervous, probably because he had no clue what Sputnik was, and he had to start talking about Sputnik. Didn't know what that was. So apparently, I mean, it could be that Harry went back to California between New York and London, but that would be like super duper crazy. I can't imagine going from New York to California, changing the time difference, and then getting back. You would have to leave, I guess, Thursday night, maybe get back Friday morning and then leave Sunday morning or Sunday evening. Like, that's a really short amount of time. Like, he could have done it. Maybe Meghan requires him to, but it's all leading to a very, very interesting thing, which is that Harry is trying to seemingly strike out on his own. And why could this be? Well, number one, I think he's tired of living in his wife's shadow, which she demands of him. I think he wants to be more in the spotlight, and who can blame it? He was the one always in the spotlight since he was a child, and then he has to take a back seat. And yes, he was willing to do that for a period of time, but at some point he was going to go, wait, I was the important one. Now I'm no longer the important one. That doesn't seem right. And so it just ends up being a situation where he just gets, I think, frustrated by all the things going on and his lack of control. So he's exerting his control here, you could say. But the idea of a future where Harry and Meghan are competing for attention, I think will be really detrimental to them. Number one, Meghan will probably always win when it comes to the competition for media attention because she's desperate for it. She's always been desperate for it. She was courting the media since day one their relationship got announced. Who can forget the spooning bananas? Right? Right? She will continue to do those sorts of things because she can't help it. She can't not do it. And I don't think Harry quite knows how to react in some ways because he's not totally used to that, but he'll probably try to do it in his own ways. But the thing is, I think their relationship will get even more fraught if he has a big event like this week and she overshadows it because again, she was the one who released the Us Weekly article. She gave them the story, she gave them the sources. I think she probably wrote the entire thing herself. And she gave it to them and they sort of wrecked Harry's week as it was beginning because it became all of a sudden all about her. Now he grabbed some headlines with Jimmy Fallon, but people pretty much ignored the nonsense he was spewing at the Clinton Global Initiative because it was absolute nonsense. And because people don't really take him seriously. And he won't be taken seriously. He can't be a statesman. He can't be a philanthropist because here's the real problem. None of this is going to pay. And Harry and Meghan desperately need a lot of paychecks. I mentioned this. Royalty says, well, he did have an inheritance. I mean, he did, but it was only 8.5 million. Maybe half of that is axed in taxes. Maybe not. But the way they spend money, they're going to go through that pretty quickly. And they don't really have anything else to fall back on. What are they going to do? They need American Riviera Orchard to be a massive, smashing success. Because the thing is, you can't really be a true philanthropist if you don't have the money to back it up. Harry and Meghan don't have the money. They don't have the success to draw on. They are merely names. They're merely names. Yes, they gain some media attention. Yes, they gain headlines. Yes, people like me talk about them. But they are not resulting in tangible change. People talk about them, but they rarely take them seriously and they rarely act on what they're selling. And so, as Harry and Meghan go forwards, they have to, if they want to, if Harry wants to continue this philanthropic statesman routine, he cannot rely on his father and his brother to get him through this game. Because that is what he's relying on. He is relying on the crown to make him a statesman rather than actually doing the work, being influential via your career. You have to have a career first, then you can be a philanthropist. You think Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Warren Buffett, George Soros. You might not like all those people, but what did those men do? They made millions upon millions and billions of dollars. And guess what they do now? They give away millions and billions of dollars. They can do that because they have money. They can actually be philanthropists because they've been monetarily and commercially, career-wise, very, very, very successful men. Harry is not a successful man. He is a man still riding on the coattails of his father, his grandmother, and his brother. He needs a job. Being a philanthropist, being a statesman means nothing if you don't have a job. You need to have a job. Yes, let's look at the Clinton initiative. Bill Clinton was actually president. Chelsea Clinton was first lady. Then she became Secretary of State. No, she became a senator, then Secretary of State. I know not everybody likes them, but they had actual jobs. And so when Hillary Clinton, who was a Secretary of State, she can be a pseudo statesperson because she's actually been Secretary of State. Harry's merely been a royal and a lower ranking one at that, who's going to get more and more relevant as time goes on. Once George hits maturity and then Charlotte and then Louis, Harry's footprint will evaporate because all of a sudden the attention will go to them. He has a very, very small window here. If he wants to be successful, if he wants to be impactful, stop relying on your family. Get a job, be impactful that way. That's the only way Harry's going to be successful. It is. It's the only way he's going to be successful at this point. This ridiculous, deluded notion that he can just step up there and be a statesperson because, oh, I'm the Duke of Sussex. What happens if that title goes away? Then what is he going to do? What happens if things change and all of a sudden he is no longer in the line of succession because letters of patent have been made and they've said you really do have to reside in the UK to have that UK title long term? What if that happens to his kids? What if he divorces? Like, he cannot rely on just being Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, the guy who started the Invictus Games, which is great, I guess, but none of those people are really going to take you seriously at the end of the day with that, especially without any real power to back it up. Again, the Clinton Rolodex is infinitely more impressive than Prince Harry's. And he doesn't help himself by doing something stupid like going on Jimmy Fallon and promoting the guy's haunted house. I mean, how much was Harry paid for that? I mean, it's becoming a real question. Was he paid money to do that in order to help Jimmy Fallon, who apparently is sagging in the ratings, by the way, because they're moving his show, I guess, from 5 nights to 4 nights because nobody's watching. So Harry was brought in to raise the ship, you could say, maybe for an instance, which wasn't really all that successful because he didn't do anything. All he did was react to a haunted house. That was it. He didn't even promote anything. Like, all he was there to do was be a paid for ad. Harry is going to turn into a guy you pay to do something, and that's it. Because Harry is obviously, especially if he was paid for the Fallon appearance, which I'm sure he probably was, he is going to start being paid essentially to do whatever the highest bidder asks of him, which will lead to increasingly bad compromising situations because he needs a paycheck. So he'll do anything for the paycheck, which again is a huge danger. You shouldn't do anything for a paycheck. You should do it because you want to do it. You think it's important. You think it works for your brand and stuff. He'll do it just because I need the money. And that is the dangerous situation he's put himself in because he doesn't have a job. The advantage is if you are not, let's say, beholden to a speaker's fee or whatever for your success, you might be able to go out and do more. Harry is going to be beholden to people now because he has not created individual success for himself. He's going to have to rely on other people to give him money in order for him to go places. And that, again, not a good look. Not a good look. And Meghan's in many ways the same thing. She has one last shot with American Riviera Orchard, which I'm sure will be a modest success, but will it be a smashing success? I don't think so because people don't like her. And just because you're professionally separating yourself a bit from your wife, Harry still won't have the full acceptance or the full trust until they divorce. That's just reality. People don't like her, and because they don't like her, they don't like him, and they don't like him because he is with her and the decisions he's made since he's been with her. I mean, again, if Harry recognizes that the collapse of everything is tied to his relationship with Meghan, that relationship might not last too much longer. The catalyst for, you could argue, anything bad in his life is a result of his wife. And if we are to believe Boris Johnson that the Queen knew she had bone cancer, and perhaps much of the family knew that, and Harry knew that, and he didn't go visit her the day before she died, which he could have, Harry might really live to resent his wife. I've said this before. I think he might grow to resent her at some point because she's cost him a lot with his family. She's cost him the last years with his grandfather, his grandmother. That stuff will catch up to you. And so as he goes about and does this sort of separate thing, he might be wildly successful at it, but he also might fail. So we shall see though what the future holds. Let me know what you guys think. Is Harry really trying to strike out on his own? Is this a desperate ploy for attention and accolades, or will it result in real success? Again, I'd love to get your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching and your support. And don't forget to subscribe and like, and I shall see you guys again very soon. Bye.